welcome back to Living Local. A pounding heart, heavy breathing, cold sweat, butterflies in the stomach. They're not exactly pleasant sensations, but more of us are drawn to spooky experiences that elicit these feelings of fear when it's Halloween, making scary ghost stories very popular this time of year. I am joined by storyteller and author Brian Fox Ellis. Thank you so much for being here again.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're pumped to have you here. So before we get into the ghost stories that are happening in Bishop Hill, tell us a little bit about your experience as a storyteller and author.
So I'll be sharing The Ghost of Edgar Allan Poe. And Poe was actually one of the first stories I learned when I was still in high school. I was sitting around the campfire with some friends, and we were talking about Poe and scary stories. And just off the cuff, I told The Telltale Heart to great applause. And I thought, that was fun. Little I know that several years later, that would be my career. And for 40 years, I've been telling stories now, and Poe has been a part of all of it. So.
Wow, what an incredible background there. What do you enjoy the most about presenting ghost stories in particular?
Well, there's a couple things. With Poe in particular, he talks about the real fears that haunt all of us. You know, one of my favorite lines is, what keeps you awake when you're lying in bed at night staring at the ceiling? You know, he talks about these very palpable fears that we all wrestle with. And he also wrote a great essay about his scary stories in which he talks about how if they were just macabre and sensationalist for that reason alone, nobody would buy them. But the fact that they challenge you to think a little deeper, to hopefully come out a little stronger, to develop coping strategies. Ghost stories, there's a wonderful book by a German psychologist, German-American, about how ghost stories help us deal with real fears and teach us coping strategies. And that's why it's important, even for younger kids, to hear good, age-appropriate ghost stories. But this show is maybe 12 and up. It's a scary night.
Good to know. And that's so interesting. I've never heard that before, that it can be really valuable actually to hear ghost stories. Because you're right, you listen to these universal themes that we all deal with, and that's a great way to kind of connect with other people and figure out for yourself, look inside and be like, you know, what am I scared of?
Yeah, but in the back of our mind, we can say it's only a story.
Sure.
It's only a story.
So it's like, it's a safe space.
Yeah.
It's a safe space to kind of do that inner work.
And we do like, and that's the other thing I love about ghost stories. We do love that boo moment when I see the entire audience, sometimes, you know, 100 or 300 people, they all jump at the same time.
Right.
I just, as a performer, that's my favorite moment.
Yeah, it seems like we're all triggered by similar things. So that is such a cool experience. Why do you think people love the stories of Edgar Allan Poe?
Well, I think I just touched on the most important thing, is that these are real fears that haunt all of us. And, you know, he goes through this list of, you know, do you worry about your parents? Well, he lost both of his when he was young. Do you worry about financial ruin? He was broke most of his life. Do you worry about your wife or significant other? He lost his when she was very young. So all of these real fears. Do you worry about being buried alive? That was a genuine fear in his day.
Right.
And he suffered from a disease where he would fall into this deep sleep and once woke up in a coffin.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So he like lived and breathed these stories.
So he wrestled with those fears in his stories.
Wow. Okay. So now when we're talking about Poe, I feel like there are a lot of myths surrounding him, misconceptions. So can you set the record straight? What's true, what's not?
Well, that's why I played The Ghost of Edgar Allan Poe. And I begin by reading my obituary just to make it clear to the audience, I'm dead.
Right. You're a ghost looming about.
But as a ghost, I can come back and set the record straight. And so the obituary is key for a couple reasons. It was written by Rufus Griswold. Griswold was somebody that Poe hired as an assistant editor and then trained him to become the editor when Poe moved on to another job. And this is the gratitude he shows me, you know. And it was Rufus Griswold who was addicted to opiates. Poe was allergic. Once he was prescribed morphine as a pain reliever and had a terrible allergic reaction, so he could not be addicted to opiates. It would have killed him.
Right.
So.
Wow. And in addition to Poe, I feel like this is a great history lesson too. It's not just entertaining, it's a history lesson. Poe was a man of many firsts. What are some examples?
Yeah, so my favorite part of the show is really the stories behind the story and what was going on in his life. So he wrote the first science fiction. And I have a friend who plays Mary Shelley and says Frankenstein was first, but they were contemporaries. Poe wrote the first murder mystery. And actually, created the genre of the murder mystery and the detective novel, and the first stories that were American horror. So the whole genre of the macabre is something that Poe created, and many give him credit for the first modern short story. Playing with point of view, using setting as character. There's just so many firsts.
Really an instrumental man to a lot of things that we, work with today. Now, you mentioned in a lot of ways he did really live a tortured life, a lot of devastation. How do you think that all of those experiences inspired him as a writer?
Well, the introduction to one of the stories I'll probably tell, when he was a young boy, his mother and father died, and he was adopted, kind of, not formally. The wife was a fan of his mother, and so brought him in. But the father never formally signed adoption papers, but did take him to England, to London and Edinburgh, Scotland, when he was a boy. So he got to visit the catacombs. And you can see a lot of what he saw as a young, impressionable boy going to a formal school, a boarding school in England, that showed up in his writing. Also, just grappling with death, the Mask of Red Death, grappling with his own alcoholism in the Cask of Amontillado, grappling with insanity in the Telltale Heart.
Wow.
So
again, a lot of themes of the human experience that people may be able to relate to. How can you take part in the ghost stories, people out there, and Bishop Hill?
Well, Bishop Hill is a great time to visit anytime, but the fall color is astounding. Come out some sunny day, have pie at the filling station, or we have 3 great restaurants that serve pie. One of them was just written up in a magazine for the best pie in Illinois.
Wow,
that's
dang.
the bakery.
Count me in.
Yeah. But the show starts at 7 at the Commons, and it's about an hour-long show. Depends on Q&A afterwards. But come, bring your family, bring a carload, carpool. The building doesn't open until 6:30, so if you want to come early, a lot of the shops will be open until 5, and then you'll have time for dinner in between. The filling station is the only place open for dinner on Friday.
All right, good to know. Well, thank you so much for being here, Edgar Allan Poe, the ghost of Edgar Allan Poe. We appreciate your time.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right, you guys, we'll have all these details posted on ourquadcities.com. More Living Local continues after the break.